Welcome to the Real Estate Deep Dive with Paul D. Garrison from JP and Associate Realtors. Today we're going to be touching on the topic that's on a lot of people's minds. What about the fourth quarter? In a normal year, we would be seeing a lot of projections as far as what the Q4 is going to be like, what the beginning of 2022 would be like, but this year's been far from normal. Because of that, we're not seeing a lot of projections from the experts in the field. We're not seeing a lot of forecasts. So today we're going to try and do our best at kind of unpacking why that is and taking a look at what's important to watch to try and do our own predictions about what the fourth quarter is going to hold. Let's start out by taking a look at this quote from CNBC. Fall is usually the start of the slower season for the housing market, but nothing is usual in today's pandemic-driven housing market. Potential homebuyers are seeing a slight rise in inventory and consequently rushing into the fray. I'm not sure I'd say that they're rushing back in, but the key part of this quote that's important is that mortgage applications to purchase homes jumped 7% last week from the previous week. That is the highest level since April of this year. So the essence of this quote is saying that normally we'd be seeing a slowdown at this time of year, but instead we're seeing actually an increase in sales. So it's just kind of goes to show that right now, with this everything going on this year, it's very difficult to forecast what's going to happen in the home market. This graph does a great job of showing why it's difficult to forecast the rest of 2021. What we're looking at in this graph is home sales annualized in units over the course of each year. 2019 is in the blue line, 2020 is in the orange line, and 2021 is the green line. The bottom line is that 2020 was nothing like a normal year. If we're going to look at a normal year, we have to go all the way back to 2019. So we saw this dip in 2020 due to the pandemic, but then we packed a lot of extra business into the end of 2020. Now I want to give a little perspective on why it seems like the market's slowing down and you're starting to see some headlines to that effect. So early on this year, we looked like we're having a really stellar year because back in 2020, a lot of people took their homes off the market during the pandemic. So we actually had, you can see, quite a large difference here between the levels of 2021 and 2020. But now we're heading into the period of time where in 2020 we packed a lot of additional sales in. So you may start to see headlines that the market is slowing compared to the previous year. But a part of that is due to the abnormality of 2020. This is why it's very difficult for analysts to forecast where we're going to be for the rest of 2021. There's just not a normal year in 2022 to compare it to. In order to find a normal year, we're actually going to have to go back to 2019. And the reality is we're actually beating 2019, which was a very, very good year. This is a comparison of 2021 to 2019, and you can see we're well ahead of where we were in 2019. To continue to help put this in perspective, 2019 was one of the best years in the last 8 years of home sales. I think 2017 just barely beat by just a little bit 2019, but still it's one of the strongest years we've had in the last 8 years. So again, this is why it's very difficult to forecast where 2021 is going to end up. If we were to just go straight ahead and have level sales for the rest of the year, half the headlines are going to say that we're behind last year's 2020 sales, but the other half will say we're well above the last normal year, which was 2019. To best understand this issue, one of the important metrics to keep an eye on is active listings. This is a look at active listings in 2017, 2018, and 2019. So what we're doing is we're going back to some more normal years to really kind of help predict what's going to happen going forward. And traditionally, active listings peak in the fall. Now, if we look at what happened in 2020, active listings actually peaked back in April. And for the remainder of the year, we depleted listings. The problem was sales actually spiked as listings were dropping off. And that's been the challenge we've been faced with as we've gone through this year. So the question really becomes is when will listings peak this year? So this is a look at 2020 over 2021's active listings. We started out the year very, very low in listings, but we started to come back a little bit. But the question is when will they peak? And that's kind of what forecasters are struggling with right now. This is why I think it's important to watch the active listings, because if you want to know what's going to happen with pricings, you look at listings. You want to know what's going to happen with the market, you look at listings. So there's kind of three possible scenarios here. Scenario one, we continue to grow in listings and we, have a phenomenal year. The second option is that we just kind of level out and still have a very strong, good year. Or the third option is where we start to see active listings drop off and we actually have, a much more challenging year. So this is really kind of going to be the big question for where we're going to end up in the fourth quarter. I think that we're probably going to end up somewhere between 1 and 2, and I'll give you a couple reasons why. First, I think there's still pent-up seller demand, and I think as more and more people get vaccinated, sellers are going to become more comfortable with putting their homes back on the market and having people go through their homes to sell them. Add to that, we're also seeing new construction is really starting to take off. As we're starting to see more of the challenges around lumber costs starting to normalize and other things like that, builders are really starting to take off. The third reason is the end of forbearance will create new listings. Now, we discussed this quite a bit in previous deep dives. I don't see it causing a wave of foreclosures, but I do see it increasing the number of listings coming onto the market. Many of the metrics and numbers in this presentation are based off of the national real estate market. However, local areas can vary. Please give me a call and we can discuss your situation. Have questions about your specific needs or location? Please contact me at 214-683-8188 or paul@pauldgarrison.com. Want more information about the housing market and related issues? Be sure and check out my blog at www.pauldgarrison.com. Thank you for your time. Please take a moment to visit our website at www.pauldgarrison.com.